The Public Safety Commission lure Riki Ayotsubashi to their HQ with a business proposition, only to surround him with arrest threats. Although, not only do the commission fail to capture what turns out to be a double, but the chairwoman loses her life, throwing the commission into chaos. Days later, the heroes are prepared to commence their operation to capture the Paranormal Liberation Front. Thanks to Hawks' surveillance, the police are able to uncover Dr. Kyudai Garaki as the creator of the Nomus. Team Endeavor have their sights set on the hospital and capturing the doctor, whereas Team Edgeshot are focused on taking down the Paranormal Liberation Front's headquarters. Thus, the operation begins, and Endeavor's team storm the hospital, pinning the twisted doctor down, only to be ambushed by some Nomus, and discover he's merely a double. As Mirko heads to the underground lab to capture the real Garaki, she destroys his means of escape, but before she can get to him, he awakens 5 high-end Nomu. The rabbit hero shows why she's the number 5 hero, and holds off 4 of them on her own, even destroying 1, though it costs her a limb to do so. Meanwhile, Team Headshot move in on the Gunga Mountain Villa, where the Liberation Front is situated, and thinking of what's most important to him, helps Kaminari overcome his apprehensiveness to negate one of the villain's leaders. Elsewhere in the villa, Hawks has twice pinned down, but the villain laments how his gullibility has put his friends in danger again, so he fights back to redeem himself. Before Hawks can eliminate him, Dabi hits him with a surprise attack, and Jin is granted a brief escape. Though one of his doubles manages to save Toga and Compress, Hawks catches the original, and very unhero-like, stabs him in the back, ending his life. They seem sad about it, but Dabi? I don't know, man. Dabi, who somehow knows Hawks' real name, prepares to finish him off, but Tokoyami jumps in to rescue his teacher. Back at the underground lab, Endeavor and Aizawa finally catch up to help, allowing Mirko to crack the tank containing Shigaraki, though it almost costs her life. President Mike then shows up to completely shatter the tank, and he then hauls the wailing doctor over to the Nomus to command them to stop, leaving the hero Exus alone with the unconscious Shigaraki, though he unexpectedly awakens. Wait, that doesn't sound right. What's the line? Oh, right. Though he expectedly awakens and kills the hero effortlessly. Then, the destruction begins, and with one touch of the ground, Shigaraki causes the entire city around him to start collapsing, as we finally see the full extent of his improved decay quirk. Most of the heroes escape the lab in time, but as the decay begins to reach the evacuating civilians, the work-study students rush to save them. The opening act comes to a close, as Shigaraki activates his deadliest weapon, Gigantomachia, and he commands him to come, so they can destroy everything. So, Machia breaks out of the underground, and takes Shigaraki's comrades with him to rush to his master, who is now confronted by the number 1 hero. Whilst holding him off, Shigaraki has an inexplicable compulsion to acquire One for All. Then, using Ragdoll's stolen search quirk, he leaps like the Hulk towards Midoriya's location, who is listening to Endeavor's reports as this is happening. Aware that he's the target, Midoriya, together with Bakugo, separate themselves from the evacuating civilians in order to lead the villain to a vacant spot. Shigaraki uses a combination of quirks to eliminate the hero's communications. Then, being mere feet away from his prey, Gran Torino swoops in to save the boys. The heroes that survive the lab begin to mobilize with the sole purpose of ending Shigaraki. But even with Aizawa's erasure quirk in play, Endeavor struggles against his upgraded physical abilities. Things turn even worse for the heroes when Shigaraki summons the Nomus that survived the lab's destruction, thereby negating the numbers advantage they had. He then moves quickly to eliminate the nuisance Eraserhead, but Midoriya stops him, and against Gran Torino's wishes, he and Bakugo help in the fight. Elsewhere, nothing is able to stop Machia from getting to his master, and Midnight warns her students to run from the incoming disaster before she is killed. Then, Yayorozu makes anesthetics just as Midnight asked, but rather than give them to the heroes and run, the students decide to make a stand themselves. It takes every fledgling hero they've got just to get him to ingest a single dose, but when he changes his task to shaking them off him, all their efforts prove futile, as he continues to bulldoze through entire cities to reach his master. Back at the battlefield, Tomura delivers a short speech about how he will reject heroes as they have rejected him. Then he crushes Gran Torino's legs, and is stopped from reaching Aizawa by Ryukyu and Deku. But they can't stop him from shooting a deleter round at the teacher. Luckily, Aizawa acts fast to cut off his leg before the effects can spread, thereby saving his quirk from being erased. Damn, that was almost ironic. Even so, the villain manages to claw Eraser's eyes until he's stopped from doing worse by Shoto, and with the most troublesome quirk out of the way, he prepares to destroy everything. Before he does, Deku exhibits his newly mastered float quirk, derived from Tomura's grandmother, to save everyone. Then he proceeds to smash the villain around in the air, without any consideration for his own body. Realizing his friend is reaching his limit, Bakugo devises a plan to have Endeavor use his full power to end Shigaraki once and for all. Don't you mean one for all?
That's very funny.
Haha. Though it seems to work at first, All for One takes over Tomura's body and impales Endeavor with a new quirk. Then without thinking, Bakugo saves Deku from the same fate. Wow, what a catastrophe. No, not what's going on in the anime. The fact that you haven't liked and subscribed. Come on, man. Every time I tell you to do this, you don't do it. Just do it. Once. That's all I ask. It's one click, and you're done. You would have done it by now. Just do it. Do it. God. All for One plays on Deku's anger to lure him in, and finally grabs a hold of him to seal back One for All. A battle then takes place within the consciousness of their quirks, where All for One overpowers Tomura's will in order to steal One for All, which is being protected by his little brother and Tomura's grandmother, Nana Shimura. With the help of his predecessors, Deku fends off the attempt to steal his quirk, whilst Tomura still struggles to fend off All for One's will, as more heroes arrive to press him. In a nearby city, whilst helping evacuate civilians, Uraraka is lured away by Toga, who attacks her and establishes how they both like Izuku, then leaves after Asri arrives for backup. I generally don't know how to summarize this interaction. It was weird as fuck. Go watch it for yourself. You'll see what I mean. Let's get back to the summary. As Tomura's stressed body continues to take a beating, Machia finally arrives to save him with the League on his back. And subsequently, Dabi proceeds with his big show. He reveals himself to be Toya Todoroki, Endeavor's thought-deceased firstborn son, and as he reunites with his father and his youngest brother, a pre-recorded video of his history is playing all over the country, courtesy of Skeptic. As he proves his connection to the number one hero, reveals what a horrible father he's been, and even provides evidence of Hawk stabbing twice in the back, faith in heroes across the country begins to dwindle. Endeavor is frozen with shock as his son moves in for the long-awaited kill. But lucky for him, Best Jeanist comes back from the dead to get things under control.
Hawks never actually killed him. They faked his death.
Yeah, no shit. Idiot. But the control doesn't last long, as Shigaraki manages to muster enough strength to order Machia to destroy, which puts great strain on Best Jeanist's fibers. It takes all his concentration to hold the giant beast down, and fortunately for him, Lemillion returns to the battlefield for the first time in half a year to chase the Nomus off his rear. Bars. Machia finally breaks free from the threads, and Endeavor manages to muster the strength to punch him, with seemingly no effect. But then the giant collapses, the effects from the anesthetics finally kicking in. Compressed then puts on his final performance, by sacrificing his own body to set his comrades free of Best Jeanist's grasp. Then before Medio can recapture them, All for One reawakens in Tomura's body, and orders the Nomus to converge on him to retreat, leaving behind any comrade that cannot catch the exit ride.
Spinner don't like All for One too much.
Oh yeah, and Midoriya awakened the fourth wielder's danger sense quirk during the battle.
As the battle comes to an end, the rescue operation continues. Though as Uraraka hustles to save as many as she can, she notices some heroes lose hope in the face of crisis. All in all, with the operation over, 16,929 were captured, and 132 escaped, but many lost their lives to achieve this goal, with the most important piece still on the loose. All for One has no intention of letting the heroes mourn their losses, nor recover their injuries, as he orders the Nomus to free his real body from Tartarus. The attack commences at nighttime, and using the shared consciousness of his real body and Tomura's body, All for One is able to coordinate a simultaneous EMP attack for both sides of the prison to cause the security system to shut down. With every inmate released, the prison stands no chance, and throughout the night, the Nomus and jailbreakers help initiate 6 more prison breaks. With everything gone according to plan, All for One finally lets Tomura's body rest, as once it's completed, the Demon Lord can finally reign over the world. 2 days later, though some have suffered serious injuries, it seems all the hospitalized heroes will be okay, except Midoriya, who shows no signs of waking up. One of the injured, Hawks, remembers his past as Keigo Takami. Keigo's abusive father killed a man and was in hiding along with his useless mother, though one day when he tried to escape, he was apprehended by Endeavor. Soon after, 2 Public Safety Commission representatives approached the homeless mother and son, and they offered the boy the chance to become a hero like Endeavor, which he and his mother agreed to, even knowing they would never see each other again.
His mother gets support from this deal, but she doesn't seem to care that she's losing her son.
Hawks then awakens next to Best Jeanist, and they visit his mother's house, where he finds she skipped town, after unwillingly revealing his identity to the Liberation Front. Meanwhile, across the country, countless heroes are resigning, and civilians are taking it upon themselves to protect their own from roaming villains. But the damage caused by this reality increases every day. With many blaming Endeavor for the state of society, he laments his past actions. Then his whole family come visit to discuss Toya. Toya, the firstborn of the Todoroki family, had flames stronger than Endeavor, but a body more accustomed to ice. To prevent him from getting injured, Enji Todoroki would discourage his son from the hero life, but the fire he once lit under the boy would never be put out. After years of trying to get his father to notice him again, the day came when his flames of anger and sadness burned his own body. Though Enji is the cause, the entire Todoroki family feels responsible for what happened to Toya, and they vow to help Endeavor stand again to face Dabi. Hawks and Best Jeanist join in on the family discussion with a proposition for a top 3 hero team-up, but first, they must find out what is One for All. As his current wielder lay unconscious, he is once again confronted by the past wielders in his consciousness, but this time, they are all present, and this time, he can speak. Sort of. The first wielder tells him that because every other wielder who had a quirk besides One for All died young, its power can only be truly drawn out in the quirkless successors. Because all the past quirks are now manifesting in Midoriya, and another quirkless successor would be hard to find. He may very well be One for All's final wielder. Nana Shimura then tests him by asking if he has the resolve to kill Tomura, but Midoriya feels that there is a child crying for help behind that evil face, one that can be saved. An answer that pleases his predecessors. Stop being so fucking gloomy, guys. Join the party.
I ask myself, what am I doing here?
All Might agrees to tell Hawks and Best Jeanist about One for All. Then the top 3 heroes hold a press conference, where they are bombarded by accusations after admitting to their past failures. They also announce that hero schools across the country will become designated shelters and avoid answering any questions about One for All. Class 1A awake to find letters at their door from Midoriya, who reveals the truth of his power to them, then writes that he will be leaving UA to avoid getting them caught up in his fight with All for One. Midoriya acts as a dark knight in the now lawless Japan, as he manages to save Yo Shindo from an all-too-familiar foe. We see the first of the 6th wielder's smokescreen quirk, and with the combination of the rest of his quirks, he takes down Muscular for the 2nd time. All Might acts as support for Midoriya, with the top 3 heroes doing their part to contain the damage, as well as to be the center of the public's anger. Whilst patrolling, Midoriya is targeted by Lady Nagant, an elite sniper who used to work for the Public Safety Commission like Hawks. All for One recruited her to capture Midoriya, and gave her the airwalk quirk, making her even more deadly. The former hero's work ate away at her conscience, and eventually she killed her boss and co-workers, no longer wanting to be a part of the facade of peace in hero society. She struggles to land a direct hit on Midoriya, but attempts to throw him off by shooting a bullet at the nearby Kai Chisaki, who helped Nagant identify her target.
He just wants to see his puppy.
Midoriya breaks her barrel and attempts to sway her back to the hero's side, and just as her heart seems to open up, her body explodes, a trap set by All for One. Before she passes out, she tells Midoriya and his comrades who have gathered that she was to bring him to a mansion in Haibori Woods in 2 months' time. The crew head there with some backup, but they find it empty, with nothing but a message from All for One about how next it's Midoriya's turn. This message spurs on the youngster to the point where even All Might is unable to get him to rest, as he relentlessly searches for clues to the villain's whereabouts. Whilst facing one of his hired guns, Midoriya runs out of steam, but just when he's down, his friends show up to defeat the villain and get him back up. Though Midoriya insists he's fine, and tells his friends to get out of his way, something none of them are willing to do. They all band together to subdue their friend and let him know that it's okay for him to come back to UA. Then Bakugo shares his feelings with his longtime friend, apologizing for how he's treated him in the past and promising to be there to support him in the future. The students then escort Midoriya back home to UA, where the new barrier is up, but the evacuees taking refuge there are against the idea of having the boy rumored to be Shigaraki's target living with them under the same roof. Many try to convince the civilians of accepting Midoriya to no avail, but once Uraraka gives a passionate plea to let this broken boy have a place to sleep, the hearts of those present begin to open up to the boy behind the mask. Then, All Might heads out to convince more anti-hero groups to evacuate, and whilst at his monument, he's confronted by Stain, who refuses to believe that this thin and gloomy man is the same All Might he idolizes. He gives him some information from Tartarus, and tells him to find him and kill him, if he is truly the hero he once knew. Then he walks away. All Might then returns to UA to apologize to Midoriya, who returns the gesture, and with his conscience clear, the boy is finally able to get some rest. Stain's information combined with police information reveal that Shigaraki's body will be complete in 3 days, leaving them with much less time than they thought to retaliate. In this desperate situation, All Might personally requests for heroes to be dispatched from overseas to help in the fight. Paperwork keeps this from happening quickly, but the United States' #1 hero, Star and Stripe, refuses to wait any longer to lend a hand to her master. Okay, so that is the Season 6 summary done and dusted. Every single My Hero Academia season has been summarized. Go watch the others if you haven't by now. If you've watched them all, I appreciate you so much. You know what to do by now. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't. My next video is probably going to be a My Hero spin-off video, so just stay tuned for that. And with that being said, I appreciate you. Take it easy, and peace.